Hello, Daniel here with Recovery Central in Washington, Indiana. And today we are certainly hoping that you are all staying well on this 27th of March in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. This message will offer something of a bird's eye view of the rural community substance use crisis and the full range of possible solutions that can be implemented. The information is also available on the web on the Rural Health Information Hub, and that is a source that I certainly recommend. It does seem to have a very thorough explanation of rural crises, rural problems. If we attempt to view the entire scope of the rural substance abuse crisis, it does seem overwhelming. So in these next 5 or 6 minutes, I will attempt to dumb it down for the sake of community conversation and to bring more clarity to what Recovery Central is doing in the view of the big picture. We can begin to understand gaps in local recovery services and look for ways to best address those gaps. This discussion is based on the toolkit for prevention and treatment of substance use problems in rural communities, again on the Rural Health Information Hub on the web. And so we'll begin with some definition and symptoms of substance use disorder. I will not provide any further explanation, but again, encouraging you to look at this information online. Next, we have a list of principles for treating substance use disorder. And again, we're not taking time to explain these principles, as you can reflect on these to see which ones might be more challenging in rural neighborhoods, especially those first two principles, which say to make treatment easily accessible and remove barriers to treatment, and that is very much our intent at Recovery Central. Third, we can look at the need for services in rural communities. We have unique geographical and other risk factors. While high-use populations are not necessarily in the rural areas more than the others, these are still priorities we need to understand in providing these services and being aware of these high-risk populations, adolescents, young adults, men, and those who have not completed high school or those without health insurance. And so we can also have more discussion at a later time regarding the barriers and services that are known to rural areas, because this certainly is going to apply to us here in Washington, Indiana. As we consider treatment and recovery support services, we can be sure that we are familiar with the need for a continuum of care, which means that we do have screening, diagnosis, assessment, treatment, aftercare, and that may not apply to us entirely, but it is important for us to understand that this is a new source of awareness for our whole society, as all too often people have been discharged from addiction treatment with little or no guarantee of appropriate follow-up. Now, clients have often been blamed for choosing not to attend aftercare, but this has also been a matter of priorities in healthcare budgets. This is the slide which includes the category of services provided by both Recovery Central and Real Recovery here in Washington. The next slide provides a partial list of evidence-based treatments and supports. While Recovery Central has little to do with cognitive behavioral therapy, the concept of cognitive behavioral therapy has become very familiar in recovery literature. We can also expect to hear more in the near future about motivational interviewing and the community reinforcement approach, as staff here at Recovery Central is familiar with these models, and we've had some training on these. These are also likely to come up in training for the near future. While volunteers do not need a deep understanding of these approaches, we still need to be familiar with them. And these are the community programs to be appreciated by all of us on this slide. We don't actually do the screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment known as SBIRT. But we know that our local United Way has been involved in proper drug disposal efforts recently, and we want to be aware of the way that we all work together. And in fact, this is the kind of discussion that makes the town hall meetings very important. So we certainly want to continue this discussion to be aware of all the programs that are being offered so that as to minimize the duplication of efforts and to encourage more working together as a community. And finally, we look at the care delivery models. The peer-based recovery support and peer specialist programs are very important for both Recovery Central and Real Recovery. These were also addressed at our February 29th brunch by Justin Beatty and Brian Peake. Mutual support groups and self-help groups include more than the traditional 12-step programs like AA or NA, and we are calling for new attention to needed support groups for family members and friends of people battling with substance-related addictions. So if you become familiar with this overview of rural substance abuse treatment and recovery services, you are likely to see the value of having this material fresh in our minds as we discuss developing recovery services here in the Washington area. We need to keep this material available for reference as we gain a better understanding of current efforts and look for ways to fill gaps in services and strengthen our recovery community in and around Washington, Indiana. In the meantime, we hope you continue to stay well as we continue our prayers and efforts to overcome this COVID-19 crisis. Thank you for listening.